Well, it's this week's like all the other weeks in the sense it's good to get going and be with the guys this morning, and just got done with our first walkthrough, and looking forward to a good week of preparation. Obviously, going up and playing against a really good Ohio State team, but I like the way we started the week and need to have a good week.
Paul, how would you describe the pressure that Justin Fields puts on defenses, not only every down, but in particular on third down with what he can do?
Yeah, I mean he's it's a really good combination, right? Of what they do schematically and spread you out, and with who they do it with. A lot of talent, and then he can hurt you in a number of different ways, right? Very good passer and a good runner, and truly makes everyone. You got to play the whole play, and everywhere in the field you got to play that play, and it's a credit to really the combination, right? It's the players, the scheme, and then it's them executing it, and they've been doing a really good job of that.
Oh, we haven't seen the explosive plays in the run game for you guys in the past couple of weeks that we'd seen earlier in the season. Where do you think the improvement needs to come for those to come back?
Well, I think that a lot of those come when every guy is doing his part in it, right? And they don't just happen, right? And that's why when you get them, you appreciate it. And each week, oftentimes each play, there's a difference. It's different schemes or different players, different, and it's everyone, any big play, whether it's a run or a pass, comes from all the guys doing their part. And then collectively that leads to a big play.
Paul, kind of on the defensive side for Ohio State, they have a lot of guys with a lot of tackles for loss, but Chase Young, it looks like they can put him pretty much anywhere they want. What kind of problems does he present for quarterbacks and O-linemen?
He's obviously really talented and plays with great effort. He's got good size, length, explosive, and I think like any good player, has that confidence. He's done it and has that confidence to where, within it there's almost I don't want to say a patience because it doesn't look like he's playing slow by any means, but to where he's playing at a high level. He sets it up well. I think that's where you see, I don't want to say again patience, but you see him, he can truly attack the whole deal. If you overset him, he can come underneath. He does a good job, setting up his pass rush. All those things, what any good player does, and he's obviously a really good player.
Exactly. Paul, when you sped after the game on Saturday, but there were some injury concerns along the offensive line. Perhaps that was the reason Jason Erdman didn't play. Do you expect to have him this Saturday?
All the guys are working through everything. This point in the season, and we do expect him to be available.
And Deron Harrell, he didn't play for the first time all year on Saturday.
Expect him to be available.
Paul, people look at teams like Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson and think they're recruiting at a different level, and they just have this. They're just a notch above everybody. Do you see it that way? And can you not even afford to look at it that way?
I think from my point of view, you certainly you have to respect and appreciate what they've done, because I think it's over time. They've done it. It's not just one season, and there's always an appreciation. I think any of us would have that in any field we're in when you see someone or some company or some team doing things at a high level for a long period of time.
Paul, you guys had a couple sequences where you're inside the 10 against Illinois.
Yep.
As you look back on it, did you see some of those plays not succeed in large part because Illinois controlled the line of scrimmage on certain key plays down there?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, especially when when you're running the ball, which a lot of those were runs, and so it's always it takes both, right? There's whenever you're running the ball, every guy's got a matchup, and then you've got a numbers, equation to it. But yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Paul, how well, if at all, do you know Ryan Day, and have you sensed that he's put a stamp on that program early in his tenure?
You know, of getting to know him, right, and meetings. Certainly had a, before I knew him, before I met him, you know, you watch what he did and you had a lot of respect for him, and I think that, who am I to judge, you know, on what his stamp is? I think that there's no question that he's done a heck of a job, and I would, you know, I don't know to where you ask, but it sure seems like he's doing what he wants to do. They're playing really hard. You know, either know of, you know, a lot of their coaches, and a ton of respect for what they're doing. And I think collectively, you know, they're certainly playing at a really high level, and so therefore, he's doing a heck of a job.
Jeff.
Paul, I know you guys always say that every game is equally as important as the other, but when you were both offensive coordinator and now as head coach, when you faced Ohio State, do you think that was one way to measure where your program was, where that team was, simply because of Ohio State's sustained success?
You know, I think that if you're really were to assess how I felt, it was every week was a chance to grow, to play, and I think you gauge kind of where you're at. There's no question when you play against good teams, and you know, when we played against some really good teams, right? That after that game, it certainly, it's another maybe level of evaluation, but truly did every week. You know, it's not just something that you come up with and try to use and to avoid question. I really do believe that, and I always have. But every team you play, it's a challenge and it's an opportunity, and each one's different.
When you play a team as talented as Ohio State, is there a tendency to maybe get out of what you do normally, or how do you go about beating a team that maybe on paper has all these gifted players, maybe more than you do?
Yeah, I think that you know you get to play the game, and I think when it comes down to it, you still have to execute. You still have to play good football. You know, that's what we talked about. You know, last week, talk about it every week. You know, when you do, and when you play against a good team, or when you are in a individual matchup against a really good player, it comes down to what you do and how you do it. And I think that I would think that there's a natural instinct to where you maybe feel like you got to do more than normal. You can't. You got to do your best, and never, you know, you strive for perfection. Never will it be that, but I think you really have to trust yourself and trust how you play, and then trust those around you, and then you go play and you cut it loose.
I think you've talked in the past about the individual speed that you have on your team and the improvements that have been there in the last couple of years, but I wonder how much time or interest you have in the technology and the data that you have to tell you the individual miles per hour and stuff like that. And if you are interested in that, have there been any surprises? You can see that Jonathan Taylor's fast.
Right.
But anything else that maybe has been educational for you for that?
You know, I think where it becomes helpful to us, and it's something that, you know, every practice we're tracking it. And I think, and it's kind of fits in with what we believe in, is how does each guy be at his best? And so that is, you know, whether it's a miles per hour or a player load, those are some ways that you can track kind of who they are, and are they kind of playing at their highest level? Can they raise it up a little bit? They're down now. What is it? Why are the numbers down? Okay, maybe something's going on physically, whatever that is. So you try to use it. I don't know that we take it and say, okay, how many over 20 miles an hour? Those are more interesting than they are. I think the purpose is how can it help each individual, and how can it help guide us as to kind of how we're mapping out practice or whatnot.
Well, we've seen Reggie Pearson make quite a few plays at or behind the line of scrimmage this year. Do you think he's just more confident attacking the line if he reads a play going that way, or what's happening for him?
Yeah, I think that, Reggie's a guy that's he has made those plays, and I think that, still early, young in his career, and will continue to do that. And I think that's a part when when he first came, the first spring that he was here, he showed some of that, and now I think that it's just doing it in a game's a whole nother deal because there's so many other responsibilities to it. But I do think that I thought he played well. Had some significant big plays for us, and not just last week, previously. And I think he's and need him to keep growing as a player.
Did you feel you got something out of using both Davis and Dunn on punt returns?
I thought for what we were trying to get out of that game, it was good. The game before, there's 3 kicks, and it was 67 yards after the bounce. And even the one that we didn't field, I have a hard time saying, boy, you should have taken that one. And obviously it got a good bounce, and we're backed up to our one. But I thought it did, we minimized what had been on film previous, not just the game before, but previously, an area where, that's a lot of hidden yardage. And so I thought it was good planning. You know what else I thought? The guys up front worked and allowed us to even get a couple of, return opportunities. They weren't big, but the kind of going in when you looked at the film, those were huge in the sense of what we had been seeing.
Paul, did you notice just one walkthrough in, like you said, but for the guys that are more locked in, that no matter what happens Saturday, it's still Wisconsin taking on Ohio State in Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good day, and guys are they're resilient, and we have to turn the page fast, and I think it was very consistent to, after you win a game, guys came back, and it was, I mean, obviously there's it was the first time this group this season, lost, and yet I appreciate where they were at and how they approached today.